officially live and on the air.
We are officially live. People can see us. Hello, world.
Hey, world, what's up?
Yeah, so today we are missing Kirshner. He's on vacation. He had a last-minute hookup that came up on a vacation home, so he is a lucky, you can fill in the blank. But Anthony's here, and Anthony's got something pretty damn exciting, in my opinion. The solution is so needed right now, and I can't wait to talk about it. But before we do, so Anthony, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you work for, who you have worked for, because your resume is impressive as well.
Well, appreciate that. I've worked for a fair amount of folks. I started back in this business. I'm going to date myself here, unfortunately, back in 1989 in the Boston market, working for Charles Ribicoff, which is, it was a Ford Dodge dealership at the time on the same lot. So back in the late 80s, we were selling Fords and Dodges just outside of Boston. And it was a smaller store, but it was busy, and we sold a ton of cars, and that's where I cut my teeth in the car business. And I got in like almost all of us, right, by accident. My degree is hanging on the wall right here in architecture, and somehow in that era, there was a stock market crash. So again, a crisis, right, and people change everything. Because of these crises, and I think we'll get into that a little bit later today about the crisis going on now. But so I started selling cars. I quickly made it through the ranks, became a manager. I became the leasing manager first because I was the only guy who knew how to figure out. Remember those little tiny Ford red carpet lease calculators, and you could like build a lease and it spit out a little piece of paper that rolled up into like a little micro tiny. You'd spread it out and so I was the only guy who figured out how to use that calculator. So I became the lease manager and split every deal because it was a Ford store. So remember Ford red carpet lease. Sean Wolfington and those guys and his team would come in and train everybody how to do leases. And we had those boards with the pink and the blue of what order and your repeat customers. I stayed there for 9 years. Unlike a lot of people that bounced in that business, I stayed there at that facility for 9 years. Started a small consulting company, but then that was right around when Al Gore, remember, he invented the internet. So right around 1990.
Thank God for Al.
I know, right? Where would we be? We wouldn't even be able to do this. There would be no Skyping, no Facebook. I mean, it would be horrible. So I started a little company taking pictures of cars on the internet in 1996. And I met a guy named Payam Zamani. He owns One Planet now. Check it out. But we got together and did a company called AutoWeb Interactive at the time, and we figured out really quickly we had to put .com in our name. So we became AutoWeb.com. And shortly within, I ran the whole East Coast, so I had an office in the Northeast, and then we had one in Atlanta. We got some investment. We all moved to California. It was literally like the Beverly Hills. We packed up. We all drove out to Santa Clara and built this office. And by 2000, that company went public, and we kind of all went off and did our own thing. So that was a really fun time and a really dynamic change in the automobile industry to be right there with, Auto Bytel and us, and then MSN Cars came in. I remember we were going, oh God, we're done now because MSN's in the game. And
CarPoint.
Really, CarPoint, exactly right. But so it kind of ended up, Stone Age was another one that was, extremely popular. So it was all these mixes of everybody trying to do this internet thing. But we went public and we went off and did our thing. I ended up working from there, I went to work for DRAIVER, and DRAIVER got bought by ADP. So I was kind of, I helped John build out an e-commerce division. Because what I learned in those days was it was so funny because we were selling internet leads to people that didn't even know what the internet was. I mean, think about it, 1996, 1998. Nobody had high-speed internet in their dealerships. Most of the consumers, kind of had a little bit, but not too much. The CompuServes and the AOL. So the funny part of the story is we had 100 foot of phone wire that we would carry in our bags with these big honking Hewlett-Packard laptops, and we would have to plug into the fax machine because that was the only place that had an analog line because there were digital lines and no Wi-Fi, and we'd literally run it across the showroom into the finance office and go, hey man, you're going to be down for like an hour while I do this demo, and then everyone would huddle around this laptop and wait for the screen to paint, and but we sold it. We sold, geez, man, we went 3,000-4,000 dealerships in 2 or 3 years time because it was just such a boom of this new, like, real cool, instead of listing your cars in the newspaper, they're online, and someone can go click on it and there's pictures.
Well, can we go down a piece of memory lane you just brought up?
Yeah.
Help me with one, because we were at Checkered Flag, we were DRAIVER clients. And that was my choice. Like, one of my first ones was to switch from, I can't remember what website it was. They were purchased by Reynolds.
This company.
But we switched to DRAIVER. And we were using DRAIVER in our BDC. So DRAIVER had the idea to have a BDC, not like the BDCs we know of today, but it was you stick all the sales agents in the back room, and they can't come out till they made all their calls. Was basically what it was.
That's right. That's right. They would call it the phone punishment room, but the guys who embraced it and gals who embraced it were the ones who set the appointments. And if you set an appointment, you have a much better chance of selling cars in any world of anything, right? So I went in and helped them build an e-commerce division of that, and then we went. As a matter of fact, it's funny because I just had a call with Steve Kelly the other day, who's part owner of RedCap, and he owned a company called AutoFuse. I met Steve in Fort Lauderdale because John DRAIVER is like, hey, we need to have websites, and I'm like, all right, we can't build them, so let's go buy one. So we looked at Third Coast Media, and we looked at AutoFuse and a couple of different other companies. We ended up
got some BZ results.
BZ Results, another Sean Wolfington. He kind of keeps coming up in the conversation. But so we ended up white labeling AutoFuse, worked really closely with Steve Kelly. And I keep digressing, but this is another interesting story. We built a product called Deal Builder. Deal Builder was a digital retailing product. You could literally go and select the car, put accessories on it, calculate your payment, kind of get a rough idea and apply for financing. And if you look it up, anybody can Google this, Deal Builder in ADP. It's probably 2002, 2003. They never trademarked it. So fast forward, and I won't skip everything, but fast forward to E-League. We had to build a digital retailing product when I was the product VP there. Guess what we called it? Deal Builder. It's still called Deal Builder to this day. So anyway, so shoot back a little bit. So DRAIVER's ADP comes in. I'm not a huge, massive corporate guy, so I'm like, I need to work in little, nimble, fast-moving, innovative companies. So I left and started a consulting business of my own. And Joe Clare, I don't know if anybody remembers Joe Clare, but they ended up becoming Prime Motor Group. David Rosenberg bought Prime from Joe Clare and expanded his enterprise as the Prime Motor Group. Well, I built a huge BDC up there in Boston because he kind of recruited me in and said, hey, let's build a huge BDC, which I did. So we built out a 26 store BDC. That was so successful because I had my DRAIVER experience, and to go do it at a dealership, you had full control of being able to put your own processes in place, control the managers, which was key to any BDC, right? So the managers need to participate, they need to confirm their appointments, they need to embrace the whole thing. So it's got to come, like a lot of things, from the top down. Super successful BDC. So again, fast forward, I'm speaking at a conference. I forget if it was Digital Dealer. It was the one that's out in Southern California at the marina. The Digital Retail Summit, I believe it was. And Rachel Richards from Sonic sees me speak about this whole, take a BDC and separate it by highline and domestics and imports, and that's what I did. I kind of built this model out. So you had these tiers, right? So if they call for a Mercedes or a Porsche, it would go to this group of people who could talk intelligently about that. And then we had this whole group of people that could talk about imports and then domestics because they had trucks, right? So, the Mercedes guy really doesn't know the wheel axle ratio transmission combination for an F-250 to pull a horse trailer. You had to have people who kind of understood that. And I always believe, funneling a call in a BDC is one thing, but you still have to have some product knowledge to at least have somewhat of a intelligent communication with a customer. They get frustrated, because they just feel like they're just talking to a person who's just trying to get an appointment out of them and doesn't really know what they're talking about. So I go to work for Sonic at corporate.
And shout out to Rachel. You already gave her one, but her name doesn't come up enough on DealerRefresh.
Amazing person, right? A great operator. Great vision, and a good leader, right? So she gets results, and she hires a lot of good people around her. That team we had at Sonic was amazing. Shannon Kendall, Brian McMaster, he's over at Hendrick right now. Joe Filanowitz, the list goes on. And Jeff Dyke, again, another great leader, great company, love that company. But then so Hugh Hathcock is one of their biggest customers. Sonic's one of eLead's biggest customers. So I'm working for Sonic, kind of building this BDC integrated tool to the eLead software, because at the time, this was, I don't even know, 09, 10, something like that, the eLead software was a CRM that you could log a customer, an internet lead, follow up, really robust tool, but it had no BDC tools to it. So I'm building this huge BDC for Sonic, but I didn't have any tools, I didn't have any reporting, I didn't have anything that really helped me manage my KPIs. And this, we had 400 agents at the end of the day in all of these markets all over the country. And I wanted to standardize things and really be able to pinpoint and say, okay, what happened here? Calls come in, phone systems, everything was fully integrated. We used the CDK Cisco phone to do all the routing, connected to the CRM.
Oh, that brings back bad memories too.
You told me to talk about a brief example. I'm an hour in, and I'm just talking about how I got to this.
Well, we'll bring this back around to DRAIVER, which is why everyone's here today.
Yeah, it's going to end up there because it's funny because everything chains down to why did you do this? And it's all these learning experiences and being down in the trenches of car dealerships and building software for car dealers that you see where there's big gaps of efficiencies and ability to fulfill things and make a car dealership successful in their day-to-day things. So that's where we are at DRAIVER, and I'll try to fast forward more to there. So I end up at eLead because Hugh asked me to come down and help him run his operation in the Destin market. That's where I am. I'm right down here in Destin, Florida. So I came down, end up was the VP of product, and for 8 years that's what I did, help dealers build an efficient CRM system at eLead. Now, there's probably people watching this going, eLead CRM sucks. I hate it, but there's probably a lot of people that say eLead CRM is the best CRM. They do have 6,000 clients. I think anybody that uses a CRM, they all have their pros, they all have their cons. At the end of the day, if you use it effectively and efficiently, they're all going to get the job done, and they're all going to make you better as a car dealer. So kind of right there in that story, about 5 years ago, we started to build a digital retailing product at eLead. And my goal was to connect it to the desking tool so that the consumer on the website and the dealer working the desk could see both sides at the same time, right? So if I'm calculating my payment, it's actually showing up in my desking tool. And if the manager changes the ACV on the trade, it updates my quote on the screen for the consumer. So they're essentially talking to each other through some webhooks and APIs and calls to, and then when the customer saves it and they walk in the dealership, I pull that customer up and everything that they did on the web is saved historically in my deal. And now the sales guy can take that customer from exactly where they left off, the car that they looked at, the vehicle that they said that they wanted to get appraised, and what they saw their payment was based on all their taxes and fees. We put that in a bunch of stores. What we found was that was only a very small piece of the entire pie. The deal calculation, the vehicle selection, and getting the paperwork done at the dealership, the customer still wanted a different experience. They wanted Carvana. They wanted a car to show up in their driveway, fed truck with all the cameras. They wanted somebody to come and drop a car off to test drive it. They wanted to be able to do the paperwork without having to go sign some wet ink or go to a notary.
Nobody wants to spend the time in the dealership.
So I started to think through at that time, how do we fill that gap? And that's not an easy gap because that's infrastructure, right? That's process at the dealership. How do you move a vehicle around efficiently and effectively? How do you get paperwork to somebody without FedExing it and then losing control because the guy says, "Oh, it's on my desk. I'll get to it tomorrow or next week or whenever." How do I know where all these cars are? How do I manage who's driving them? Do I have enough people to do it? And I kept seeing this, so started to work with some folks that I know and I trust, and smart and bright engineers, and we started to put together a logistics idea of managing all of this that happens in the background with software, and then software with workforce, right? Because we know that the dealerships aren't going to be able to provide the workforce, nor are they going to be able to take a spreadsheet and make it work on a day-to-day basis. So here we are today with DRAIVER, and it all came from that whole cascade of all of this knowledge that I've put together through all these years of actually being in there and working in these environments and understanding it. I always, and I'm not putting anybody down, but I always chuckle when somebody is a guru and starts telling everybody how to do something, and then you look and say, well, they've never done that before. So where did that come from? How do you know, right? Because I truly believe you have to do it to know it. You got to walk the walk, to talk the talk, and that's a John Draver-ism. So that's where we are. Sorry for the long explanation, but I think it's important to see how it all comes together. Because when you do get involved with a company like DRAIVER, you want to trust that the people behind the scenes are putting good software in your hands, and we actually know what we're doing to solve your problem.
Couldn't agree more. The long intro is a good one to help people appreciate and understand that you do know what you're talking about. It's kind of funny. I didn't realize you started in 1989 in the car business. That's when I got started too. Also, not by choice, but that's a story for another day. However, you're right. So many digital retailing solutions, and I bring that up because it's a hot topic right now, are built by or led by people who went and bought a car once and might have decided, hey, I can revolutionize the car business. I can make a better experience here, but they don't truly realize that there's a big psychological component that needs to be answered, and that's only answered by the car dealer, and that's to let that customer know that this is the best deal you're going to get. That pat on the butt, so to speak, that says, buy this car, and technology can't deliver that. However, taking this back around to DRAIVER is one thing that COVID has proven out is that if people will have the opportunity to not have to go sit for 4 hours in a dealership and buy a car, they will take that opportunity.
Without a doubt, I think I don't even know what the saying is. The horses left the barn. The the cat's out of the bag, whatever one you want to use. Consumers are conditioned today for things to show up on their doorstep and not have to go somewhere. The car deal is one of the last ones. Home buying and car sales are one of the last ones. The big tricky piece to this is the trade. I can go online, I can shop for a computer, I can compare all the specs and read the reviews, but I'm typically not saying, hey, well, I've got this old thing that I've used for 2 years. Here you go. How much is it worth? And somebody appraises it and then gives you a value, and then you negotiate that transaction differently than you do the one that you're buying. Well, for many, many years, and still today, we blend them together in the car business, so it becomes this one kind of blurry, this is how much your payment is, right? By design, but still they're two separate transactions. Now throw in the car 60 miles away, and the customer's not going to come in. How do I solve that problem? That's one of the first problems we tried to solve with, initially, we have a company name that's called Remote Appraise. Well, that is really a piece inside of DRAIVER now, that Remote Appraise is to send a dispatch a driver.
Why don't we take a step back here, Anthony, and explain what DRAIVER is at a high level? And then jump into the trade appraisal side, because I think that's a giant piece of it. But helping the dealers understand that, like, tomorrow, they could have DRAIVER at their dealership and be able to do at-home deliveries, and be able to do service deliveries, and
absolutely. So it's simple. So think of Uber, right? You have an app on your phone. You say, hey, I need a ride, and I'm right here, and I need to go over there. Logistically, it has a network of drivers that raise their hand and say, I accept that job. I'm going to go pick Alex up at where he is. He's going to get in the back of my car, and I'm going to drive him to where he wants to go. And an app tells him to turn left, turn right. It tells you that they're 5 minutes away. You get in the car, and then you leave, and everything gets paid for. So simple. It's frictionless, right? New word, contactless, frictionless. I'll throw those out there just to fun. But it's a similar concept. So what we did is we first built the logistics network around you have your own drivers, and you have your own staff, and you have your own employees, right? So we built a logistics platform around how do you move all of these people around in your dealership. So whether it's a customer that needs to get home on a shuttle drive, or it's a part that needs to be picked up on demand, or most importantly, a vehicle that needs to be moved from point A to point B. We separate them into classes like a home delivery, a remote test drive, or lot to lot. But so a dealer today can go into our application and say, I need to move this car at 11 o'clock this morning to this destination, and I need it to be done by 2 o'clock. Click save, and then go about their business. It's done. Then someone else from the service department could go, hey, I need to go pick Dr. Smith's car up at 2:35 at this address. Click save. And then another person from the dealership could go in and say, hey, I need to do a dealer swap at 3 o'clock, and I need to move this car over there, and I'm picking one up and I'm bringing one back, and I need it done before we leave today, and save, and then they're done. So that's all they do. Our system will completely plan those and assign those. They will get it done by either your driver or our driver. When I say our driver, our contractor network of drivers. So we built the logistics around that. In the first customer was the bigger customers were like Penske Truck Lease, because they're moving hundreds and hundreds of vehicles all over the place, all over the country, and they would just have all these people dump into like this baking machine, all these moves, and then our AI goes, here's the most efficient way to move all of those vehicles all over the country for the least amount of cost, the least amount of time, and the least amount of drivers, and it would plan it out. And they used their own drivers initially. Well, they and other businesses, time went on, says, well, I don't have enough drivers. Help me get drivers. So then we started to build out the driver network. So we've got about 6,000 drivers right now. Let me turn off my Slack.
Well, as you're saying this, I'm thinking of a lady named Dawn Prieto who worked for our Toyota store, Checkered Flag. And we did so many DXs. And Dawn was just constantly on the phone, arranging the DXs and then running down the list of, we called it the little old man list. Not as PC as could be today, but it was a bunch of retired men who just wanted to be on the road all the time, and she was just constantly doing that. If she could take that out of her day, God, she would have loved that.
Yeah, so we have people like her today that used to do that, that are our best referrers, right? So they literally will tell you that I spent 4 or 5 hours of my day on the phone trying to track someone down, trying to text, can they get here? Where are you? Why is it taking so long? You were supposed to be there. How much longer, right? So all of these little things that you don't think about that is part of your day when you're talking about vehicle movement and logistics. You have to do, somebody has to do it because someone's doing it today. Imagine if none of that is in your day anymore, other than I need to move this car to here and I need it done by this time, click save. And then if it's late, or because of traffic, or because a car breaks down or something, you get an alert on your phone and you go, oh geez, the guy's going to be late, and then the customer that it's going to gets notified, or the other dealer, or whomever needs to be notified is notified, and then you either log in the app or the dashboard and see what's going on. We even do things like, let's say a car breaks down. Who does that now? Well, somebody at the dealership needs to figure it out. Well, our app will send a rescue Uber ride to rescue the driver. We can coordinate the tow if there needs to be a tow, or whatever, to get that vehicle back to wherever it needs to be. But all of these little things that come into play with vehicle movement and logistics, that's what DRAIVER does. And we can talk about, why does a car dealer need it today versus, let's say there wasn't COVID. Wouldn't that just be nice to have?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, how many dealers have talked about offering service deliveries? I know, shoot, I've been out of the dealership for a decade now, and we were talking about it all the time over 10 years ago.
We got in the car business in '89, and I would run my own dealer trades, or like you said, my dad was one of the runners, right? I got him a job at Natick Ford, and he was a runner. And I'd say, hey, Dad, I need you to, and we didn't have cell phones at the time, so I'd have to try to get him, at the house with the trimline phone on the wall. But once I did, I would schedule a time, and then, I would coordinate that, or whoever the manager was would coordinate that. And we still do it today. The difference is now we're doing it via text. We're doing it via call. We're trying, so, think about today too, we have a lot of older retired people in our network of drivers. And they find once they use the app, it's easier for them than having to try to talk to somebody on the phone while they're driving, or, they can't. It's just so much easier and so much more efficient to coordinate these moves.
Well, a few weeks ago, we had, and we share a mutual client now. So he's been connecting my company and yours up with ideas. And that's Matt Haken. We had him on Refresh Friday a few weeks ago, and he blew our minds with how he's tackling the post-COVID dealership world. And
way out in front of the curve, way out there.
He is. Yeah, he's on he's not even on the tip of the spear. He's like where the spear thinks it's going next.
Yeah.
But Matt told me the other day that prior to DRAIVER, he had full-time drivers on staff, and they were just doing home deliveries for sales he was doing. And they were driving out from his store in New Jersey. They could be going into New York City. They'd be going down to Connecticut or up to Connecticut, and just all over New Jersey and whatnot. And since he's added DRAIVER, he has put those drivers into the app, And I think he might even be 1099ing them. So they're not on the payroll anymore. And now they're available to other dealers to utilize in the app too. He found that's cheaper for him. And he's just, he's got those guys and gals marked as his preferred. So,
yes. Yep.
So once they've been, they're busy or whatever it is, then he goes out to the broader network of like Uber drivers, actual Uber drivers and Lyft drivers and DoorDash drivers who are also inside the DRAIVER community.
That's and think about today's world of gig economies, right? And gig workers. In a lot of times in a sales pitch, especially this one, you'll say, hey, you can really expand your workforce and, why have all these drivers on staff? Because, you can, if you need 10 today, order 10. If you need 1, then order 1. If you need 0, well, guess what? I haven't paid for any, right? So some days I have very, very busy days. This is a very cyclical business. I don't know when customers are going to buy cars. I don't know when customers are going to need a home delivery or a service pickup and delivery. Service pickup and delivery is a little bit more scalable and manageable than a home delivery or a remote test drive or a remote appraisal, but still they happen and you can kind of monitor and measure it across the board. But at the same time, I've got dealers that will do 12 moves a day, and then for 2 days they do 0. So imagine if you had a staff of people that was their job and you didn't have work for them to do. You just have them run around doing busy work to pay them money to do nothing, where in this model, you're only going to pay for what you use. It's a true by the drink cost. There's very, very nominal platform fees. Everybody has a SaaS fee because you have to, the logistics has to run on something and there's costs of data and all that stuff that we, as software companies, we have to have a SaaS fee. But to provide the network, and I talk about growing it, but guess what? It's also collapsible. And in today's world, with these things happening from day to day, I had one of these interviews last week with Jennifer Clark from Joe Bullard Enterprises out in Mobile, Alabama. There are 5 Highline stores, and Paul Daly and I did it with Jennifer. That's a pitch for Paul Daly and Congruent. So she had 5 drivers, and she took those drivers and converted them to contractors. 2 of the drivers, because she said 3 of them, they were thinking about maybe letting them go anyways, and they had to furlough some people because of COVID. Now she has her preferred drivers, just like Matt does, and she has the expanded network drivers. Many days they'll do 8, 9, 10 moves, and they're doing moves 2 hours away in some cases, 3 hours away, in their local market. But they've been able, that's the thing, Matt and all these people who jump on our platform, they can really expand their market quickly because you can offer a deal to somebody 2 hours away and make a deal. And we'll talk about the trade appraisal, but go ahead. I can see you wanted to say something about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Matt, again, I'm sure there are other Matts out there, but Matt's one that we're both close to, so we talk about him. But he has realized that there's no more circle that he's drawing around his store in New Jersey. His marketplace is now, is 2 oceans and 2 countries are the borders of his marketplace, and he's sending cars all over the country now. Being enabled to do that is pretty crazy, and that's why he's the #1 Volvo dealer in the country. But he's selling, crazy part, for every new Volvo he sells a used car too. So he's got a 1-to-1 ratio going right this minute.
It's absolutely amazing, and it's been so fun working with him as well because he challenges, I'm a guy that challenges myself and my team all the time to be innovative and new ideas and, build something that no one's ever thought of before. And I'd like to probably bring some of those things up. But, as I'm dealing with Matt and folks like him, it's so refreshing because they really are thinking like, not how do I do business today? They're thinking about how am I going to do business tomorrow, in 2022, in 2024. How do I do what landscape is changing and how we knew this was changing, right? And I posted a blog yesterday on LinkedIn talking about why do we wait for the crisis to change everything? I got in the car business in '89 because of a financial crisis. In '08, we totally redesigned the car business to focus on service and built all these service, platforms where, guess what? We probably should have been focusing on service for the last 20 years.
In 1989?
Right? But no, everything sales, and then also we do this big shift over to service because of these crises, right? And everybody panics and lays people off, and how do I streamline, and how do I make my business profitable? And now here we are, and we all knew that consumers were going to demand them to do some remote selling. Not 100%. I don't think it ever goes like complete. Nobody ever goes to a car dealership again. But I think 50% of the people end up buying cars without visiting a dealership over the next 3 years, right? I think the number goes that high. But why did we fight it up until now? Because what we're seeing is almost nobody's prepared. There's not a lot of Matts out there. There's not a lot of Jennifers. There really isn't. There's a handful, but guess what there is now? There's a lot of wannabes. There is so many people that because of the crisis, they're being forced to make this change. And it's a mindset, though. And you talked about that before. It's not just throw some software in there and cross your fingers, because this isn't a magic bullet. It's a culture change. You have to think about how I'm going to deal with a customer that's not sitting right in front of me, and how do you get the personalized communication to that customer. Do we do Zoom meetings to make a deal? Why not? Why can't we have a conversation? You're trying to buy a car and I'm doing what I would do. What's the difference if you're sitting across from me at the table versus this virtual screen? And I say, you know what, Alex, why don't I just bring the car to you? And I go over here and I go click, click, click. And how's 3 o'clock? And you go, well, that's good. Click save. There's your test drive.
Well, speaking of that, so there are some questions. I'm going to scroll back up in the comments here. So different Jeff was asking if the driver would leave his vehicle at the pickup spot, or is a chase driver required?
So it depends. If there's a 1-to-1 ratio, right, I'm going to pick up a car and bring the car back. So I'm going to leave my car at wherever I picked the original car up. I'm going to drive the car that needs to be delivered to destination B. At destination B, I'm going to pick up a car and bring it back. If there is no 1-to-1, then what will happen is a chase car. So we have 4 different variations of chase. Either we provide the chase through the network, the dealership provides the chase and their team member would drive it. The dealership provides the chase and our team member would drive it, or we use a rideshare service. So the cool thing about our platform is we built it so it can chain tasks and activities together. So I can literally go in and build. I need to go take this car to point B. At point B, I need to pick up a car and go to C, not back to A. At C, I need to go inside and pick up a part from my sister store. Then I need to go to D and drop that car off where they have another car, and that one's going back to A. So you can literally make a 6-hour, 5-hour, 4-hour chain of events that end back up or near back to the original destination, and that's kind of what our AI does, right? It'll say, well, you're going to end up near back. I'm just going to get you back the rest of the leg via an Uber will show up when you get there.
And is Tyler a relation of yours?
He is. That's my son. He helps he is in charge of our customer and client services.
So he did a good job answering that question in type as well. So,
oh, cool. Yeah,
yep.
So
definitely father and son are on the same page here.
That's right.
Awesome.
You'd chip off the old block if he messed it up and get a whooping.
And then Jeff had a follow-up question. He said, with CSI on new car purchases, the delivery experience is part of the questionnaire. Are there any concerns with that? Sure.
So that is an awesome question. So we have the ability to categorize our burstable and marketplace workforce. into groupings, right? So we have this concept of white glove. So what you can do is take the drivers that when you first open up the platform, have them come in and essentially interview with you and say, hey, this is the job that you're going to be doing for my platform, and it requires these skill sets, this type of dress, a collared shirt, no flip-flops, no tank tops, and I'm going to put you in this pool after you do a couple of these and I feel comfortable. I'm going to put you in this pool called white glove, and you're going to be able to perform this specific type of task. And it also includes delivering the paperwork and being able to show the customer how to program their radio to set their favorite station. Now, they're not going to be able to do a full walk around of a vehicle like a seasoned professional salesperson would. That's where you bring in the virtualization of, hey, I see that you got your vehicle. Is everything okay? We got your trade back. Perfect. You got a few minutes to jump on FaceTime with me so I can walk you through your vehicle. That's how some of our clients are handling that. But yeah, that's a great question.
So going back to Haken again, his latest idea was to also have product delivery specialists inside the DRAIVER community. I know that might be a little harder to source, but a lot of his drivers were the salespeople. Mm-hmm. So now they're able to be hired by maybe other dealerships, and they might be that white service capability might be right up their alley, or white glove.
White. So, and you can call it whatever you want. We made it so you label it whatever your thing is, right? Think about the concept, though, of I have some employees that I don't have full-time work for all the time that have a skill set. Now I can place them into a gig economy enterprise network that there might be 5 or 6 or 7 dealerships in my market that could keep that person busy throughout the course of the day so that their earning potential goes up. And not only that, they have a really flexible schedule, right? If I'm not available, guess what? I don't have to call in sick today. I just press, I'm not available. So I got things to do. I have to go to the doctor. I have to take my kid to a recital. I have to do some other things. And I don't have to call and say, hey, boss, is it okay if I take some time off? Can I use my PTO and do all that paperwork? It truly gives not only the employee, but the business, the flexibility of having workforce available to do specific tasks on demand and only pay for it at that time. And not only that, we cover the insurance. So that's another whole key thing, too, that Matt loves about this, is because when that driver steps in their car, we're picking up the insurance liability on not only that vehicle, the first $100K on the vehicle, but we're covering $1 million of liability around if, God forbid, something happens and they get in an accident.
Well, by the way, way earlier in the broadcast, Heather McKinnon said hello.
Hey, Heather.
And Jeff, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing your last name. Is it Shearer or Shearer? But I'm calling you other Jeff right now.
Jeff.
So he was just saying that his yacht selling clients have a captain do each delivery. So you do, I forget what they call it, sea test or lake test or
lake trials.
Lake trial. That's it. I haven't bought my boat yet or my yacht, but
I have a boat charter business, so that's a whole nother. We can get into that later. I'm here in beautiful Destin, which is a huge fishing community. We have a couple of boats, but we won't bring that up on this call.
That'd be a more fun conversation, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. Next time you're in town.
Yeah. So, all right. So we were talking before the show kicked off about, probably one of the best placements for where DRAIVER could be. So, a lot of, I would think at least that you would think it would be a great place to put inside the website or inside the digital retailing solution. But I do agree that that's a good place for them, and to let the customers know that that's an available thing, especially if you can charge the customers for, let's say, you offer to pay for whatever the driver cost is within 20 miles of the dealership, but outside of 20 miles, maybe the costs go up. Maybe we should talk about what those costs could be. But I know Matt was delivering a car from New Jersey to Connecticut and needed 2 drivers. It was expensive. And that's a cost that I would assume a customer would pay. I mean, I've bought a car from a dealer virtually and had to pay for shipping. A few states away. Actually done it a few times. Not a big deal. But getting back to where in the process it would fit, this is something that you'd want to be able to maybe send to a customer in an email or as a text message or in a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's listen, we've got 8 steps, 9 steps, 10 steps, depending on, the guru. I can put on different hats and change my voice to be the guru of how to sell a car. And however you do it, the step of selling cars don't change, right? I still have to have a vehicle selection. I have to have an interview process. I have to land on a vehicle. I want to do a product demonstration. That one's a little bit harder remotely, but maybe I bring the car to you if it's reasonable, and you hold on to it and drive it for a few hours or days or a day. But in that time frame, I'm still communicating with you about how does it feel, same thing, same qualifying questions we ask the customer while they're on the test drive. How do you like it? And try to get that feeling of their emotions brought into purchasing an automobile. We can't completely make it a sterile operation, because then it changes the dynamic of this transaction. Then it becomes a commodity, and we go down that whole road of commoditized selling, which erodes profits. So how do we do that? The trade thing, again, I keep bringing it up because it's so important, because it's the big X factor, right? It's a major X factor. Am I truly comfortable putting $35,276 on your trade-in car sight unseen? Now, I know they have really cool tools out there. There's a lot of them, and many of them are my friends, and they've developed amazing software. But the reality is, if you read the fine print on any digital retailing product, and you would admit that in the fine print it says subject to physical appraisal or inspection of the trade. So even though they go, hey, I guarantee you're going to get this money, way down in the tiny print it says still subject to. So listen, if the car gets there and it's all dinged and banged up and it's not in the condition, the dealer has to go back to the customer and recuperate the cost of making that car the car that they said it was worth. We're offering a service where no matter where that car is, just dispatch a driver to go out, take a bunch of pictures, inspect the car, figure out if it's got dents and dings all over it, see if it smells like cigarette smoke or animals, and see if that car is worth what it's worth. So, and we even did a survey asking customers, if you didn't have to drive to the dealership to have your vehicle inspected for a trade appraisal, would you pay for it? We did a Survey Monkey survey. 90% of the customers said, yes, I'd pay. Now, they didn't say they'd pay a lot, but they pay a little bit of money. So there's definitely a model here, maybe post-COVID or even during COVID, to charge a little bit of money to these customers, because it's the convenience of it, right? Would you pay? I ask everybody, would you pay for that? And I've never had a person yet say, no, I wouldn't pay for it. They never told me how much. Now, it could be $1 in their head, but they never did. I mean, and my mom's retired, and she's in her 80s, and she says, hey, honey, I need you to give me a ride down so I can get my car serviced. And I said, let me ask you a question. Would you pay? Now, I'm cheap. I'm joking. I said, would you pay any amount of money to have someone come pick that car up and take it back for service? And she looked at me. She actually doesn't really know what I do. And she goes, well, of course I would. Like, it was just like, of course I would. So the model's there. Dealers are going to bear the brunt of this right now, because it's a way for them to differentiate themselves and gain market share and continue to sell cars right now and help customers feel safe. And we'll talk about safety, I think, in this session. But consumers will at some point go, yes, here's my credit card, $50, come inspect my trade.
So well, Chris Leslie is commenting and saying that everyone says they'll pay for something until it's time to actually pay for it.
Yeah, he's probably not right, but with e-commerce, they can choose to pay or not to pay, right? So you either swipe your card or you don't swipe your card. Mm-hmm. If you choose not to do it, then that's the dealership that has to decide whether or not they want to supply that service and take it out of the deal, right? This is still a negotiation of a lot of things, and this just happens to be a component. Now, how much does it cost to send my salesperson or my porter or my own car and all of these other things? So we're not just talking about adding an expense, because everybody kind of has this expense. It's just, are you managing it properly? Are you efficient with it? Do you have do you even know? Like, that's one of our closing questions when they say, well, this is kind of expensive. Well, I don't even know if it's expensive or not. How much are you paying today? And they go, well, we're not paying anything. So we say, well, you're not moving any cars at all at your dealership. 0 cars you move. And they go, well, no, we move a lot of cars. So there's an expense for everything. Things don't happen for $0 in any operation.
Yeah, so you go to almost any dealership website right now, and there's probably a banner up there that says, we'll deliver a car to your home. I wonder how many of those dealerships can actually pull that off at scale.
Well, from experience, I'm finding about 1 in 20 right now. And it's anecdotal, right? Anecdotal through how we sell. So one of the easiest things to do is find somebody who needs something to sell them something that you have, right? So I remember back in the old days, go back to '89, how did I find people who wanted to buy cars? Well, I picked up the newspaper and started calling the people who were selling their cars, because they obviously weren't going to walk. So that was kind of my prospecting mode pre-CRM. Today, and I've been doing this my whole life, I train the sales team and anybody to say, hey, go find somebody who needs our service. Well, how do you do that with this? You go to their website and it says, COVID-19 safety, I'll bring it to your house, home delivery, service pickup and delivery, blah, blah, blah. So guess what? We start calling them, or we'll mystery shop, or we'll try to see what that process is. One, it might be they're using a competitive service. I want to know who that is and how they're doing it, and maybe have a conquest opportunity. But guess what we find? When it comes down to, hey, can you bring me that car today? It's now all of a sudden silence of, what do you mean? Well, the thing on your website, to bring it to my house. Well, it's kind of like after you bought the car and we appraised your trade and and it just reverts back to exactly what you didn't expect as a consumer. So, I think the guys who get it are going to get all that business. The people who don't, that customer is going to get super frustrated and just go, you know what, I'm going to find someone who can do that.
Bring that up again. I hate to do it, but, he has realized that through delivering vehicles and not having customers come to his dealership, he's able to charge more. He's getting his PVR's gone through the roof.
Yeah, and it will. And I watched Brian on the TED Ings conference a couple of weeks ago. Brian Benstock, who's famous for doing this, and his per RO is up $220. So people. Think about it. I'm going to go pick up your car, maybe leave you something or not to drive for the day. And it's not that big of a deal these days because people are telecommuting and they're not having to go back and forth to work like they used to. So, hey, my car's going to be gone for an afternoon. Whoop-de-doo, right? So they go pick up your car, they bring it back, and now they call you and say, hey, Alex, you know what? I need a brake job. Well, guess what? Go ahead and do it. You already have it. It's already there. I don't need it. Before, those jobs were under pressure because the customer wanted their car back because they needed it. Now the pressure's off because people don't need their cars back as quick, and they might as well get it fixed because it's there. So offer that service. Watch your gross go up. It's a new world of automobile retailing and servicing. And as a dealer, We need to find those little sweet spots that help our gross grow and create efficiencies. And how do we do that efficiently? And that's, if you think about DRAIVER, there's no way, if you haven't done this before, that you can schedule all these moves and have them timely and pick them up at the same time and communicate with the customer what's coming and not coming. If there's a road hazard or if there's traffic, there's so many things that go to play into these logistics that it can't be done by hand these days.
And I think it's also worth mentioning, just as a sidebar, as we're getting up to the 2:00 hour, is this is a win-win-win here, because the drivers themselves, as you were telling me before the show, Anthony, they're if they're not drivers that the dealer is bringing into the network, they're usually Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, DoorDash people who would prefer to drive a car without somebody sitting in the back seat, and also to have gigs that during the daytime. Because most of their fares are in the evening. So
that's right. So their fares are in the evening, and that's what they tell us. They go, listen, I prefer to go get in a vehicle that no other human person is in, unless there's a chase, which is the smaller piece of it, and drive a car, pick one up and drive one back. So why wouldn't they want to do that? And they're normally nice cars. They're look at Matt's situation. They're driving $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 Volvos for 2 and 3 hours. Who wouldn't want to do that and get paid? But we do, part of their gig is to be COVID safe. So the dealership has control of that, but we do require from the contractors to sanitize anything they touch, to wear the masks, to make sure that all of the surfaces that they touch are sanitized. So that's part of this whole piece of the product. One more thing.
Sure.
We have license ID verification and facial scan recognition in our app. So before I hand you that car, person that I've never met that's 60 miles away, before I hand you that car, pull your license out, take your phone, I don't touch it, scan it. It goes through the process. It said, turn your phone around, look in the camera, it takes a selfie of you through your own camera. It matches the facial ID on that ID, validates the ID, the facial recognition, and it comes back and it says green or red. Now, you should do that before you get there, and you can do it when you get there to make sure that that person is the person that you're giving that keys to.
Nice. Yeah, good point. That fraud and security stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're banging up against 2:00 here, and the most important part of all of this is, how would somebody get in touch with DRAIVER in case they were interested in learning more information?
So they can go to our website, www.draiver.com. They can call me directly. I take phone calls all the time. It's 774-291-6100. All of that information, they can just fill out a form on our website. Someone will contact you right away. But we're making it easy for guys to come on, because we know when they get on, they love it. So what we're doing is 60 days. We're waiving all the software fees for anybody. And we're also going to give free trips for marketplace drivers. So not only set your drivers up to use the platform, we're going to give you some free trips of marketplace drivers just to see how it works. Take it for, hey, this is our virtual test drive. Take it for a ride, see if you like it. No setup fees, no long-term contracts, because we know it works, and it's one of those things, once you see it, you're going to believe it. And we've got, we move thousands of vehicles, and we're not just in car dealers, we're with huge organizations like Penske and Hertz and a lot of the rental car companies that move massive amounts of vehicles. So we know how to do this. We rarely know how to do it for a car dealer, because that's what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've been nothing but impressed with this since just you reached out. This was weeks ago, and the things that Matt's saying about it, telling everybody I know that, hey, you should look at this. So, yeah.
Thanks,
if you're not at least reaching out for a demo of the product after this, then yeah, I guess you're missing out. Hopefully your competition doesn't see this show.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Cool, man. Hey, always a pleasure. We're going to be working together a lot with Matt. He is super stoked. I'm so excited to be working with him. Such an awesome dealer. Love those types of relationships. They're so fun.
Yeah, he's pushing us pretty hard for an integration.
Yes.
I am really liking the idea. So,
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Hey, thanks for joining. Call me.
Thanks, everybody. Anthony, thank you for your time. You got a killer product.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.